in a small village set in the lush green heart of the Indian subcontinent, under the fleeting shade of banyan trees and beside the gently flowing waters of a river, a boy named Aryabhata was born. The exact date and place of his birth remain shrouded in mystery, a mystery that has persisted for centuries, debated by historians and chroniclers alike. Yet what is undebatable is the profound impact Aryabhata's mind would have on mathematics and astronomy, echoing through generations and shaping civilizations yet unborn. Aryabhata's childhood was marked by the unique confluence of tradition and curiosity. In an age when oral transmission was the principal vehicle of knowledge, his family, believed by some to have Brahmin heritage, ensured that young Aryabhata absorbed the Vedic scriptures and the essentials of Sanskrit. However, the bustling community in which he was raised was not content with simply reciting ancient hymns. Larger questions simmered beneath the placid veneer of daily life. Why do the stars shine in fixed patterns? Why does the moon change its shape? Does the sun circle the earth, or is it the other way around? Aryabhata was unsatisfied with mere rituals or dogmatic answers. By the time he was a teenager, he was already recognized as someone whose questions unsettled the elders and challenged the status quo. It was an epoch when learning demanded sacrifice, where hours of meditation and study melted away the arrogance of certainty, and only the truly determined rose above the drudgery of rote to glimpse the abstract. It was during these times of early wonder that Aryabhata developed a passion for numbers and patterns, a trait that would become his calling card. With a stick, he'd draw patterns on sand, picking pebbles to represent celestial bodies, experimenting with what we would now call models. Rail-thin, with sharp, attentive eyes, Aryabhata spent more nights gazing up at the heavens than sleeping beneath them. The movement of planets became for him a puzzle, their alignment a coded message that beckoned deciphering. As Aryabhata grew, so too did the reach of his curiosity and the breadth of his education. He studied at the great ancient University of Nalanda in eastern India, one of the world's earliest institutions of higher learning, drawing from a deep well of scholarly tradition. At Nalanda, he was exposed to a cross-pollination of ideas, philosophy, mathematics, logic, astronomy. Monks, mathematicians, and astronomers from distant places strolled through the extensive grounds, discussing theories that ranged from the profound to the metaphysical. This place was Aryabhata's crucible, the site of his intellectual metamorphosis. At Nalanda, Aryabhata found himself at the epicenter of debate. Dissent was not only permitted, but encouraged. In lamp-lit rooms, amidst the fragrance of sandalwood and scrolls, he argued over numbers and stars, dismantling superstitions with reason and reassembling knowledge with logic. It was here that Aryabhata learned of the Greek astronomers, of Ptolemy and Hipparchus, whose ideas reached Nalanda via Silk Road traders and nomadic scholars. Yet he saw flaws in their geocentric worldview, flaws he was eager to expose through precise calculations and geometric proofs. Aryabhata's genius, however, was not born of mere rebellion. It was a product of patience, diligence, and a fierce love for truth. Many of his peers surrendered to the dogmas that cloaked knowledge and mystery, but Aryabhata believed in the light of understanding. He rose hours before dawn to make calculations in the quietest moments, determined to chart the skies with unprecedented precision. But for every breakthrough, Aryabhata faced challenges, some from the world, some from within. Resources were scant. Reliable instruments did not exist. His observations depended on a keen eye and an inventive mind. He had to devise his own gnomons and clepsydras, measuring shadows and tracking hours by observing lotus buds closing and opening. Every night, his fingertips would be ink-stained, his mind buzzing with equations that reached beyond his era. It was against this backdrop of hardship and perseverance that Aryabhata composed his magnum opus, the Aryabhata. Written in verse to aid memorization, the work encapsulated extraordinary discoveries. He described the methods to calculate the value of pi to remarkable accuracy, understanding its irrational nature when most of the world believed in rough approximations. He introduced the concept of zero as a placeholder, a feature that would become the cornerstone of all future mathematics and elevate Indian numerals to global prominence. What set Aryabhata apart was not merely invention, but the audacity to question. When ancient scriptures declared that eclipses were demons swallowing the sun or moon, Aryabhata stated that eclipses were natural phenomena, results of the interplay of light, shadows, and cosmic bodies. For this, he was both celebrated and ridiculed, a contradiction that colored much of his existence. Yet in moments of public resistance and scholarly argument, Aryabhata never let go of humility or his search for meaning. Once, after a particularly heated debate with senior priests who bristled at his unorthodox explanations, Aryabhata wrote, "Knowledge is vast, but blind certainty is the true darkness." It is a message that echoes through the ages, that questioning is not rebellion, but reverence for reality, and that growth begins where certainty dares to end. In his later years, Aryabhata reflected on the interconnectedness of all things. He observed cycles in mathematics, mirrored in nature, in the orbits of planets, the rhythm of seasons, the spiral of shells. Though legends exaggerate and myth embellishes, Aryabhata's writings reveal a man who felt a deep unity with the cosmos he sought to understand. His legacy, carried forth by students and successors, would ripple across centuries, teaching every generation the immortal lesson: to seek, to strive, to doubt, and above all, to wonder. Aryabhata's insights into the nature of numbers and celestial mechanics not only challenged prevailing thought, but also laid foundational stones for future mathematics and astronomy. The Aryabhata, his crowning work composed around the year 499 CE, was concise yet rich with pioneering ideas. By expressing complex calculations in verse form, he ensured his knowledge would be memorized and disseminated in an era when written texts were rare and fragile. This oral transmission method, though vulnerable to loss and distortion, strengthened the communal bond of scholarly pursuit and made extraordinary knowledge accessible to a wider circle. Among Aryabhata's many innovations was his novel approach to the value of pi. While earlier cultures had approximated pi, often crudely, Aryabhata's calculations were impressively precise. He provided an approximation of 3.1416, which is remarkably close to the true value. He did this not through trial and error, but by underlying mathematical logic that recognized the importance of the circle's circumference to its diameter, a principle dictating the very fabric of geometry and astronomy. His work suggested a profound understanding of irrational numbers, a concept foreign to many at the time, which would not be formally developed in Europe for many more centuries. The concept of zero, which Aryabhata incorporated, yet did not elaborate exhaustively, was revolutionary. Zero was not merely a symbol for none, but served as a crucial placeholder in the decimal positional number system, a concept that would radically transform mathematics. While zero's full emergence and acceptance developed over generations, Aryabhata's use of placeholders moved Indian mathematics far beyond the cumbersome Roman numeral systems and gave rise to the numerals we recognize today as Arabic numerals, spreading globally through trade and scholarship. Aryabhata also dived deeply into the nature of planetary motion, crafting heliocentric ideas well before Copernicus. Although he did not completely reject the geocentric model, he posited that the Earth rotates on its axis daily, explaining the apparent movement of stars and planets across the sky. This was a breathtaking departure from widely accepted models attributing stellar motion to celestial spheres. In Aryabhata's vision, the Earth was not a stagnant center, but a dynamic, rotating body. This idea was initially met with skepticism and was often overshadowed by religious doctrines that favored an Earth-centered universe. But it planted seeds that centuries later would grow into the accepted modern understanding of astronomy. His explanations of eclipses were another area where Aryabhata's insights illuminated truth against the darkness of superstition. Prevailing beliefs depicted eclipses as supernatural or ominous events, often blamed on gods or demons. Aryabhata, by contrast, explained them scientifically. Eclipses resulted from the alignment of the sun, moon, and earth, where shadows cast by these bodies cause the temporary darkening seen during solar and lunar eclipses. This articulation was a triumph of observation and rationality, guiding future astronomers to approach the cosmos not with fear, but curiosity and rigorous inquiry. Despite his advances, Aryabhata's life was not free from opposition. The cultural and religious environment was deeply traditional, and questioning sacred cosmology was dangerous. His scientific views challenged the authority of Brahminical priests, who were the keepers of cosmic and ritual knowledge. Records suggest Aryabhata's ideas stirred controversy. Some respected his genius, while others scorned what they perceived as heresy. This tension underscored the eternal conflict between innovation and orthodoxy, a pattern repeated in many societies across time. Technology during Aryabhata's time was rudimentary. Without telescopes, precise clocks, or sophisticated instruments, he relied on naked eye observations, shadow measurements, and elegant mathematical deduction. His use of the gnomon, a device that measures the position of the sun's shadow to determine time, demonstrates his inventive spirit. This tool was vital for calibrating the calendar and understanding the solar cycle. He also took advantage of water clocks and comparable instruments to track time during the night, revealing his resourcefulness in overcoming technological limitations. Aryabhata's astronomical models balanced mathematical rigor with cosmological speculation. He divided planets into categories based on observable behaviors and explained their movements in terms of epicycles and eccentric orbits, ideas that would prefigure later Greek astronomy, but adapted uniquely within Indian cultural frameworks. Though lacking the modern scientific method, his approach combined empirical data, inductive reasoning, and intuitive geometric constructs, a methodology that would influence not only Indian, but also Islamic and European scholars as centuries passed. Philosophically, Aryabhata's work hinted at the infinite nature of the universe, an audacious idea for his time. The recurring cycles of seasons and planetary motions suggested an endless cosmic rhythm, challenging linear narratives of creation that dominated spiritual thought. His poetry evoked not merely calculations, but a sense of harmony, of mathematics, reflecting the divine order permeating all things. This blending of science and spirituality characterizes much of classical Indian scholarship, where rigorous inquiry and metaphysical speculation often intermingled. Yet, despite its brilliance, much of Aryabhata's biography remains obscure. Scholars debate almost every detail: his exact birthplace, his mentors, the circumstances of his death. Some claim he was born in Kerala, others in Bihar or Bengal. There are no surviving personal writings beyond the Aryabhata, no letters or autobiographical notes, only the echoes of his teachings passed down through disciples. This scarcity of personal history contributes to the mythical aura surrounding him, positioning Aryabhata both as a historical figure and a symbol of intellectual courage. What remains indisputable is the extent of Aryabhata's influence on subsequent generations. His numerical methods and astronomical models were referenced by Indian mathematicians such as Brahmagupta, Bhaskara I, and Bhaskara II, each building upon his foundation. The spread of his ideas through the Islamic world via translations into Arabic helped usher in a golden age of science in the Middle East, including scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, whose name gave us the word algorithm. Through these channels, Aryabhata's reach extended far beyond India, touching the Renaissance scholars of Europe and the scientific revolution centuries later. Through his life, we glimpse a timeless message. The power of curiosity coupled with perseverance can illuminate the darkest mysteries. Aryabhata's example reminds us that intellectual progress often requires challenging conventions while maintaining humility and discipline. His spirit teaches that breakthroughs come not from sudden inspiration alone, but from the persistent refinement of ideas, the rigorous testing of theories, and the courage to embrace uncertainty. In contemplating Aryabhata, one is reminded of his own words, where he described the universe as infinite and boundless, with the earth like a ball suspended in space. He posited that knowledge itself is infinite, and though exhaustive mastery is impossible, the continuous pursuit of understanding is humanity's noblest endeavor. This philosophy, stitched into both his calculations and his cosmic vision, finds profound resonance today. For the modern reader, Aryabhata is more than a historical figure. He is an exemplar of intellectual bravery. His legacy urges us never to fear questioning the established order, to marry imagination with reason, and to acknowledge that progress transcends cultural and temporal boundaries. When faced with challenges, whether lack of resources, social opposition, or the sheer complexity of the unknown, Aryabhata's resolve becomes a beacon. In a world that often seems to drift through superficialities and distractions, his life beckons us back to the fundamental joy of discovery, to the patient unraveling of mysteries written in stars and numbers. We are reminded that every calculation, no matter how small, and every question posed is part of the infinite dialogue between humanity and the universe. As Aryabhata matured, his profound insights began crystallizing into systematic theories and practical calculations that continued to astonish and inspire. His magnum opus, the Aryabhata, composed around 499 CE at the young age of 23, was not just a scholarly text, but a manifesto of intellectual courage and innovation. Though the Aryabhata consists of just 118 verses arranged in concise Sanskrit slokas, the breadth and depth of knowledge embedded in its poetic lines encompass a lifetime of observation, analysis, and imagination. Aryabhata's work marked a paradigm shift, especially in the field of mathematics. He employed a base 10 number system equipped with the concept of zero as a placeholder, a subtle but revolutionary idea at a time when many numeral systems struggled with expressing large numbers efficiently. This positional decimal notation made calculations more straightforward and more scalable, sowing the seeds for modern arithmetic. Though Aryabhata did not explicitly define zero as an independent number, his use of zero as a symbol enabled numerical operations with unprecedented clarity and flexibility. One of his landmark achievements was his remarkably accurate calculation of the value of pi. Aryabhata gave the approximation 3.1416, astonishingly precise for his era, using a formula expressed poetically, indicating he recognized pi's irrational and transcendental qualities despite lacking formal proof. This approximation was far superior to many contemporaneous estimates in other cultures and served astronomers and mathematicians in India and beyond for centuries. His work on geometry, including measurements of arcs, triangles, and circles, pushed mathematical boundaries by intertwining theory and observation. Aryabhata's contributions to algebra were no less groundbreaking. His introduction of the Kataka method, literally meaning pulverizer, for solving linear indeterminate equations, allowed the systematic tackling of equations of the form ax plus b equals c. This method predated similar European techniques by over a millennium and laid key groundwork for algebraic problem solving. The Aryabhata also hints at early explorations of quadratic equations and geometric progressions, foreshadowing advanced mathematical concepts that would develop much later. Perhaps even more revolutionary were Aryabhata's astronomical models. Departing from the entrenched geocentric worldview, Aryabhata proposed that the Earth rotates daily on its axis, explaining the apparent westward movement of stars and planets as an optical illusion, long before Copernicus suggested heliocentrism. While he did not fully embrace a heliocentric system, this hypothesis was radical for a culture steeped in cosmic mythologies and religious doctrines placing Earth at the universe's center. His sophisticated understanding of planetary motions, epicycles, and orbits demonstrated a dynamic cosmos governed by calculation rather than divine whimsy. Aryabhata also thoroughly explained eclipses as natural phenomena caused by the shadows cast by the earth and moon, dispelling superstitions about demons swallowing the sun or moon. His observations describe solar and lunar eclipses as predictable events, governed by geometry and the relative positions of celestial bodies, a scientific understanding that was groundbreaking in ancient India. This achievement alone challenged deeply seated cultural fears and empowered later astronomers with a rational framework for celestial events. To perform these astronomical calculations, Aryabhata had to be inventive with the limited tools his time afforded. Without telescopes or mechanical clocks, he relied on gnomons to measure shadows, water clocks to track time at night, and careful naked-eye observations of star positions. His measurements of time were meticulous. He calculated the length of a year as 365 days, 6 hours, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds, astonishingly close to modern values. He also recognized the varying lengths of days and nights across latitudes, reflecting a nuanced understanding of the Earth's shape and rotation. Aryabhata's innovations extended to trigonometry, where he produced the first systematic treatment of the sine function, called Ga in Sanskrit. His sine tables, given at intervals of 3.75, were accurate to 4 decimal places and remained foundational in Indian mathematical astronomy for centuries. He also introduced related trigonometric concepts like cosine and versine. Interestingly, the modern words sine and cosine derive from misinterpretations of these ancient Sanskrit terms through Arabic translations centuries later, underscoring Aryabhata's lasting legacy across cultures. Despite such towering achievements, Aryabhata's life was not without challenges. His revolutionary ideas sometimes clashed with orthodox religious beliefs and conservative scholars who decried his mathematical and astronomical assertions as heretical or speculative. Proposing that the Earth rotated or that eclipses had scientific explanations was a bold affront to mythic narratives and priestly authority. Yet, Aryabhata remained unshaken, advocating reason and continual inquiry over dogma. His humility and persistence amid opposition embodied the scientific spirit, open, rigorous, and ever-questioning. The exact biographical details of Aryabhata's life remain elusive and debated by historians, but the influence of his work is indisputable. His concepts traveled beyond India through translations into Arabic during the Islamic Golden Age, impacting Middle Eastern scholars like al-Khwarizmi and al-Biruni. His methods informed astronomical tables and mathematical treatises throughout the medieval Islamic world and eventually Europe, where they helped fuel the Renaissance's scientific awakening. Aryabhata's legacy lived on through Indian mathematicians like Brahmagupta and Bhaskara I and II, who expanded and refined his work on zero, algebra, and astronomy. These successive scholars continued the tradition of empirical observation fused with mathematical abstraction, advancing science in India long after Aryabhata's time. The Hindu calendar and even the Islamic Jalali calendar owe aspects of their calendrical computations to Aryabhata's calculations. Today, Aryabhata's stature endures not only historically but symbolically. In 1975, India launched its first satellite named Aryabhata as a tribute to his pioneering spirit, linking ancient scientific brilliance to modern technological achievement. Educational institutions, awards, and scholarship initiatives commemorate his extraordinary contributions. Embedded in Aryabhata's life and work is a timeless message. Profound insight requires curiosity, mathematical rigor, and intellectual courage to challenge established beliefs. His journey shows that advancement stems not from fear of upheaval, but from embracing uncertainty and seeking truth with discipline. Aryabhata's synthesis of observation, computation, and cosmological vision invites all learners to see science as both an art and a humble quest to comprehend the infinite universe. Aryabhata's enduring legacy invites us to dive deeper into both the mathematical genius and the human perseverance underpinning his work. His life exemplifies a convergence of intellectual discipline, philosophical inquiry, and observational precision, all hallmarks of a mind centuries ahead of its era. As we delve into the subtleties of his contributions and the challenges that surrounded them, a fuller picture of his impact, both immediate and long-lasting, emerges. One striking aspect of Aryabhata's scholarship was the manner in which he embedded profound theory within compact, poetic verses. The Aryabhata runs barely a few dozen pages in modern printed form, and yet encapsulates a vast array of mathematical and astronomical wisdom. This compression was intentional and served practical as well as pedagogical purposes. In an age before widespread printing and when manuscripts were fragile, concise memorization of verses was the best way to preserve and transmit complex knowledge. Students memorized these verses, passed them orally, and then elaborated through commentary and teaching. This oral tradition created a powerful lineage of scholars connected across generations and geographies. The poetic form also allowed Aryabhata to subtly embed his revolutionary ideas amid traditional literary styles, often shielding them from the immediate scrutiny and rejection they might have provoked if presented in blunt philosophical or scientific discourse. This strategic elegance made his work approachable and protected it from censorship by rigid orthodoxy, ensuring the survival and dissemination of his insights, even in politically or religiously conservative environments. Aryabhata's mathematical ingenuity continued to reveal itself in unexpected ways within the Aryabhata. Beyond the well-known approximations of pi and his number system innovations, he demonstrated techniques that anticipated integral calculus and trigonometric identities used much later. For example, he approached the sum of arithmetic progressions with clarity, and his interpolation methods, though primitive compared to modern calculus, allowed for surprisingly accurate approximations of values between tabulated points. Moreover, Aryabhata's introduction of the Kataka algorithm, the pulverizer, provided a systematic way to solve certain types of indeterminate equations of the form x plus by equals c, where a, b, and c are integers. This technique could be considered an early form of the Euclidean algorithm for finding greatest common divisors combined with iterative substitution. This was a clear demonstration of advanced algebraic thinking and had practical applications in calendrical and astronomical computations, where modular arithmetic was essential. Aryabhata's mathematical insights were coupled with an empirical spirit that embraced the realities of observation despite technological limitations. His astronomical calculations were based largely on naked eye observations and measurements of shadows. He devised and employed instruments such as the gnomon, a simple but effective vertical stick whose shadow's length changes with the sun's position, allowing him to estimate solar noon, solstices, and equinoxes. Alongside the water clock, which measured time intervals by the flow of water, these instruments enabled surprisingly precise tracking of celestial cycles, guiding Aryabhata's model building. These tools were essential in Aryabhata's determination that the Earth spins on its own axis once every 24-hour period. This was revolutionary. It explained the apparent daily motion of the stars, not by the movement of the heavens, but by the Earth's rotation. While his model maintained a geocentric perspective in overall planetary ordering, by introducing axial rotation, he laid the groundwork for future scientific paradigms that would fully embrace heliocentrism centuries later. This insight showed a rare combination of imaginative thinking and empirical grounding. Aryabhata's theories also addressed the relative sizes and distances of celestial bodies. Although these were approximations, he calculated the diameter of the Earth and the Moon's size relative to the Earth, attempting to express the cosmos's scale with measurable terms rather than mythic abstractions. These efforts illustrated a worldview increasingly framed by rational measures and geometric relationships, replacing the anthropocentric mythologies prevalent in earlier ages. In the context of eclipses, Aryabhata's precise statements about the Earth's shadow falling on the moon during a lunar eclipse and the alignment of the moon between the sun and Earth during a solar eclipse marked a critical stepping stone toward scientific understanding. It was a statement of causality grounded in observables, representing a triumph of reason in explaining phenomena often wrapped in fear and superstition. His eclipse calculations even included predictive elements, identifying the periods called Saros cycles, the approximately 18-year period after which eclipses repeat, a fact confirmed by modern astronomy. However, Aryabhata's bold scientific narratives did not come without considerable opposition. The dominant religious traditions of his time viewed the heavens as the domain of gods, spirits, and cosmic order expressed through sacred texts. To suggest that planetary motions and eclipses obeyed natural laws amenable to human calculation was, to some, a dangerous subversion of divine mystery. Aryabhata's ideas sometimes placed him at odds with powerful Brahminical authorities, whose ritualistic interpretations of the cosmos underpin social and religious hierarchies. Despite such resistance, Aryabhata persevered. Historical accounts hint at his willingness to defend his positions intellectually, arguing that understanding natural phenomena magnifies spiritual reverence rather than diminishes it. He believed that finding the rational structure in nature was a form of worship, an acknowledgement of cosmic order that transcended superstition. This philosophical stance canonized the harmony between scientific pursuit and spiritual depth, a hallmark of classical Indian scholarship. The cultural climate in which Aryabhata worked was one of vibrant intellectual exchange, but also keen competition among diverse schools of thought. Apart from orthodox Hindu perspectives, Buddhist and Jain philosophical systems flourished, each with distinctive cosmological ideas. The intellectual milieu prized debate and dialectic reasoning, with scholars often traveling long distances to seated assemblies and universities like Nalanda, where Aryabhata is believed to have studied or taught. This cross-pollination of ideas catalyzed synthesis, enabling Aryabhata to both draw from and challenge earlier traditions. The lasting influence of Aryabhata's work is visible well beyond the borders of ancient India. Translations of the Aryabhata into Arabic during the Abbasid Caliphate introduced key mathematical and astronomical concepts to the Islamic world, contributing to the era's remarkable scientific renaissance. Scholars such as al-Khwarizmi drew on Indian numeral systems and algebraic methods, ultimately transmitting this knowledge into medieval Europe. The Arabic numerals used worldwide today are in fact descendants of these Indian roots, symbolizing how Aryabhata's intellectual legacy crossed not only time but continents. Aryabhata's impact on calendrical science was equally profound. His refined astronomical calculations improved the Hindu calendar's accuracy, informing ritual dates, agricultural cycles, and astrological predictions across the Indian subcontinent. His understanding of the synodic and sidereal months advanced traditional timekeeping, while his work on the length of the solar year corrected earlier calendrical errors, critical for aligning festivals and religious observances properly. On a more symbolic level, Aryabhata personified intellectual resilience against adversity. Scholars today recognize that the obstacles he faced, lack of advanced instruments, social skepticism, and fragmentary historical records, make his achievements all the more remarkable. He operated at a time when science was inseparable from philosophy, mythology, and religion, carefully navigating these intersections with tact and insight. His story encourages to embrace complexity and remain courageous in questioning accepted norms. Aryabhata's message resonates strongly in modern contexts. His approach shows us the power of integrating imagination with empirical observation, of communicating complex ideas with artistic elegance, and of challenging orthodoxies not to rebel, but to expand understanding. The balance he struck between humility and ambition serves as an example for thinkers in all fields. In the rapidly advancing world of today, Aryabhata's legacy reminds us of the foundational importance of curiosity, rigorous methodology, and openness to novel ideas. His work teaches that progress depends on questioning givens, synthesizing knowledge across traditions, and persevering through uncertainty. The spirit of exploration and respect for nature embodied in Aryabhata's life remains a beacon for educators, scientists, and philosophers alike. As the first Indian satellite launched in 1975 bore his name, Aryabhata now symbolizes the continuing journey of India from ancient astronomical insights to modern space exploration, a testament to the enduring human quest to understand the cosmos. To reflect on Aryabhata's life is to glimpse the timeless dance between challenge and discovery, tradition and innovation. His journey encapsulates a profound lesson. Ahead of every leap in human knowledge rests the courage to look beyond the horizon, to question, to calculate, and ultimately to wonder endlessly about the universe we inhabit. As we continue to explore the life and legacy of Aryabhata, we are drawn deeper into the intricate web of his mathematical reasoning, the challenges he surmounted, and the lasting influence that extended well beyond the borders of ancient India. The intellectual environment that nourished Aryabhata was complex, a fertile ground for both creativity and contention. His achievements carry the mark of a scholar navigating a world where tradition often resisted change and knowledge was a precious yet contested commodity. Aryabhata's mathematical and astronomical insights reflected a sophisticated understanding of patterns in nature. Yet his genius also lay in the ways he translated abstract ideas into practical tools and algorithms. His work on solving linear indeterminate equations with the Kataka method, capable of deriving integer solutions to complex relations, showed not only creative problem-solving, but also administrative ingenuity, as such solutions were crucial to calendrical calculations and astrological forecasts. This method treated an equation like AS plus by equals C with A, B, C as integers, as a puzzle that could be pulverized or broken down through repetitive division to find integer solutions. This greatly expanded the scope of mathematical problems that could be handled systematically, and similar algorithms would not reappear in Europe until medieval times. The transmission of such techniques enriched future mathematicians and helped cement India's reputation as a cradle of advanced mathematics. Aryabhata's trigonometric explorations were arguably as groundbreaking as his algebraic advances. His sine table, where values were given at regular intervals, corresponding to arcs of 3.75 degrees, represented an empirical and methodical effort to quantify circular measurements essential for astronomy. His definition of the sine function as half-chord length on the circle simplified complex angular calculations and influenced not only Indian scholars, but also Islamic mathematicians who later adapted these concepts. Aryabhata's work laid foundations for spherical trigonometry, vital for understanding planetary orbits, eclipses, and navigation. These studies had profound practical implications. They allowed Aryabhata and his successors to refine planetary positions and predict celestial events with much greater precision than before. His calendar reform was deeply mathematical, accommodating lunar and solar cycles that do not align simply, and his recognition of the leap year concept helped synchronize civil, agricultural, and ritual calendars, an indispensable tool for society. His calculation of the sidereal year as 365 days, 6 hours, 12 minutes, and 30 seconds was astonishingly precise, differing from the modern value by mere minutes. Such accuracy was remarkable given the observational technology of the 5th century CE and testified to his meticulous measurement and computation. Beyond numbers, Aryabhata's conception of cosmology was also revolutionary. His view of Earth as spherical and suspended in space challenged accepted dogmas that portrayed the Earth as flat or resting on animals or pillars. He described the Earth as a globe suspended freely without support, effectively breaking with millennia of mythological imagery. His description came with a scientific rationale for the Earth's shape and explained phenomena like the differing seasons across hemispheres, showing an advanced understanding of geography and astronomy. His model included a heliocentric element, the idea that the Earth rotates on its axis daily, which explained the apparent diurnal movement of stars and planets without requiring the entire universe to revolve around the Earth every 24 hours. Although he did not explicitly deny geocentrism, his insights paved the way for future heliocentric models. It is vital to appreciate how extraordinary this hypothesis was, in a time when celestial spheres governed by divine will were dominant intellectual frameworks. Aryabhata's approach to explaining eclipses scientifically deserves further emphasis. He argued, using geometric reasoning, that eclipses occur due to the shadows cast by the Earth and Moon upon each other, rejecting prevalent superstitions of malevolent spirits causing these events. His eclipse predictions were based on calculations including the syzygy, the alignment of the Sun, Moon, and Earth, and he accurately described both lunar and solar eclipses' recurrence patterns. Notably, he touched upon the lunar node's role, which modern astronomy recognizes as critical eclipse points. The cultural and philosophical implications of these ideas were profound. By denying supernatural causation and proposing natural explanations, Aryabhata not only advanced scientific understanding, but also subtly challenged religious authority, provoking ideological resistance. Yet he framed his rationalism with philosophical depth, locating the cosmos within an ordered and intelligible framework that, rather than diminishing spirituality, enhanced reverence for the universe's harmony. Aryabhata's work influenced not only scholars, but also the broader social fabric of his time. In ancient India, astronomy was deeply intertwined with rituals, astrology, and daily life. Calendars determined religious festivals, agricultural cycles, and civic activities. Precise astronomical and mathematical knowledge was imperative to ensure these events occurred at proper times, imbuing Aryabhata's calculations with direct socio-cultural importance. His corrections and refinements helped minimize errors that could prove costly to societal functions, highlighting the practical underpinning of his theoretical work. Despite the radiance of his intellect, Aryabhata's life remains shrouded in mystery and poetic grandeur. Much of his biography is pieced together from sparse references by later scholars rather than primary sources. Historians debate his origins and life story, with some suggesting he hailed from Kusamapura and others proposing Kerala or elsewhere. This ambiguity imbues his story with an almost mythical aura, amplifying the symbolic power of his intellectual achievements. The transmission of Aryabhata's knowledge through centuries testifies to the enduring utility and depth of his work. His texts were studied, commented upon, and expanded by notable mathematicians like Brahmagupta and Bhaskara I, who preserved and extended his legacy. The movement of his ideas through translations into Arabic during the Islamic Golden Age brought Indian mathematical and astronomical insights into the mainstream of medieval global scholarship. Scholars such as Al-Khwarizmi credited Indian numerals and theoretical frameworks, which shaped algebra, arithmetic, and astronomy in the Middle East and later Europe. Aryabhata's legacy endured not only through texts, but also symbolically. When India launched its first satellite in 1975, it was fittingly named Aryabhata, linking the spirit of ancient scientific innovation with modern technological aspirations. This act recognized not just the man, but the intellectual tradition he represents, an unbroken chain of inquiry, precision, and bold discovery. Throughout his journey, Aryabhata embodies an invaluable lesson. The pursuit of knowledge requires not only genius, but courage to confront established dogmas and patience to refine ideas carefully over time. His life exemplifies the delicate interplay between imagination and discipline, between asserting novel ideas and respecting prior traditions. His example resonates across disciplines and epochs, inspiring questions about how progress is forged in the crucible of skepticism, controversy, and relentless curiosity. Aryabhata's story is also a testament to the power of education and intellectual exchange. His presumed affiliation with Nalanda, one of the ancient world's centers of learning, underscores the importance of collaborative environments that nurture critical inquiry. It reminds modern readers that innovation flourishes best where ideas are freely tested, debated, and transmitted. Finally, Aryabhata's life invites us to reflect on the broader human quest for understanding, how the movements of stars, the rhythms of numbers, and the unfolding of the cosmos reveal a world far richer and more interconnected than surface impressions suggest. His legacy calls us to embrace the unknown, not as a threat, but as an invitation to deepen our knowledge and expand our imagination. Aryabhata's vision did not merely lie in isolated discoveries, but in a synergistic approach that united mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy into a coherent worldview. His work exemplifies how abstract inquiry and practical application can complement and enrich each other, especially in an age without modern instrumentation or formal scientific methods. As we move deeper into Aryabhata's impact, it becomes clear that his innovations touched upon the very nature of knowledge itself, its acquisition, dissemination, and transformative potential. One of the defining attributes of Aryabhata's methodology was his rigorous reliance on observation coupled with mathematical modeling. Despite the lack of telescopes or optical aids, he used naked-eye astronomy to meticulously record celestial motions, timing them through shadow measurements and water clocks. His attention to cyclical patterns, such as planetary revolutions, lunar phases, and eclipse intervals, demonstrated a systematic approach to uncovering laws hidden in nature's repetition. This cyclical thinking was not merely practical. It also resonated with philosophical notions of time and cosmos prevalent in classical Indian thought. Aryabhata's mathematical formulations were designed to facilitate these astronomical computations. His use of positional notation with zero allowed efficient representation of large numbers, needed for calendar calculations and predictions. Though zero as a full-fledged number with arithmetic rules would be elaborated by later Indian mathematicians, Aryabhata's treatment as a placeholder was revolutionary and essential for an advanced decimal system. This positional system replaced cumbersome additive forms of numeration and enabled arithmetic operations, enhancing calculation speed and accuracy. His sign tables stand out not only for their accuracy, but also for their conceptual clarity. Defining the sign as a half-chord of a circle's arc was a remarkable insight into trigonometry's geometric basis. Aryabhata presented these values for increments of 3.75 and connected them to angular measurements necessary for tracking planetary paths and timing celestial events. Trigonometric functions thus became essential tools for astronomical endeavor, a legacy that would persist and evolve for millennia. Aryabhata's understanding of the Earth as a sphere suspended in space revolutionized cosmological thinking. He rejected previous flat Earth or pillar-supported Earth models and recognized gravity as a force that holds everything together, a notion that anticipated the idea of gravitational attraction. His concept that people around the globe experience downward force toward its center was groundbreaking, implicitly acknowledging relativity of spatial orientation. A subtle but profound insight. The proposal of Earth's daily rotation to explain apparent celestial movements foreshadowed a mechanistic view of the universe. This was not a casual hypothesis, but a carefully reasoned theory emerging from observation and analysis of star motions, eclipses, and planetary positioning. Aryabhata's explanation replaced the complex and cumbersome celestial spheres of earlier cosmologies with a simpler, more elegant model that better matched observed reality. Though he maintained the Earth's place at the center of planetary orbits, his contribution was a clear forerunner to heliocentrism. The detail with which Aryabhata addressed the mechanics of eclipses reveals a profound shift from superstition to rationalism. By demonstrating that eclipses were predictable and caused by shadow alignment, he challenged myths and fear-laden interpretations. Solar eclipses were explained through the moon obstructing sunlight, and lunar eclipses as Earth's shadow falling on the moon. Aryabhata's use of nodes, the points where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic, underscored a sophisticated grasp of orbital dynamics. This scientific explanation demystified the cosmos and empowered future generations to continue exploring celestial mechanics. The intellectual environment in which Aryabhata operated was extraordinarily rich, yet fraught with challenges. Ancient Indian society was interwoven with religious and cultural structures that venerated sacred texts and traditional cosmologies. Scientific inquiry that questioned or corrected these beliefs often met resistance from custodians of orthodoxy who saw such ideas as threatening. Aryabhata's work, while pioneering, thus required both courage and diplomacy. His poetic, cryptic style served as a tactical shield, permitting dissemination of his ideas in a context wary of radical departures. Historically, Aryabhata's influence was expansive, but somewhat indirect. The limited number of original manuscripts and the complexities of oral transmission meant that much of his work survived through commentaries and adaptations by later mathematicians and astronomers. Figures like Brahmagupta and Bhaskara, the first and two, deepened and expanded Aryabhata's methods, refining algebraic, arithmetic, and astronomical insights. This scholarly continuity ensured Aryabhata's concepts were not lost, but enriched and preserved within a lineage of scientific excellence. Translations of Aryabhata's work into Arabic during the Islamic Golden Age profoundly affected global science. The Arabs adapted and synthesized Indian numerals, positional notation, and trigonometric methods into their own mathematical corpus. These adaptations entered Europe largely through Spain and the Crusades, eventually catalyzing the European Renaissance and scientific revolution. This historical transmission underscores the interconnectedness of human knowledge beyond national or cultural boundaries, and elevates Aryabhata's legacy from Indian history to world heritage. Aryabhata's contributions resonate with remarkable philosophical depth. He acknowledged the infinite nature of knowledge and the cosmos, emphasizing humility amidst vastness. His poetic verses often meditated on universal order, cyclical time, and the interplay of mathematics with cosmic harmony. He regarded the pursuit of knowledge as a sacred endeavor, a path to understanding the divine order manifest in natural law rather than mere human domination of nature. This spiritual dimension gave his scientific assertions a broader existential significance. Challenges Aryabhata faced were not only social, but also technical. Without modern instruments, he relied on inventive indirect methods to gather data. For example, measuring solar angles through shadows required precise timing and geometric calculation. Determining lengths of years and lunar months demanded patient observation over decades. These methodological constraints highlight Aryabhata's resourcefulness and the rigor of his analytical mind, a testament to the power of disciplined human ingenuity. His mathematics also included the use of modular arithmetic concepts implicitly embedded within his calendrical calculations. The concept of cycles, such as planetary cycles and eclipse cycles, relies on periodicity and congruences, forming early examples of modular thinking well before formal number theory emerged in Europe. Such advanced abstraction attests to Aryabhata's visionary grasp of numerical relationships underlying physical phenomena. Despite the passage of over 1,500 years, Aryabhata's work remains inspirational. His narrative is woven from curiosity that defies complacency, from rigorous logic countering superstition, and from a relentless quest to understand the cosmos. He pioneered a tradition of mathematical astronomy that positioned India as a center of scientific thought long before modern eras, and his discoveries continue to illuminate mathematical and astronomical education worldwide. Aryabhata's life encourages present and future generations to embrace intellectual courage combined with epistemic humility, the readiness to question presumed truths while acknowledging the vastness of what remains unknown. His legacy teaches us that progress often arises from challenging established frameworks with carefully reasoned alternatives, supported by observation, calculation, and respect for empirical evidence. As we reflect on Aryabhata, we glimpse a timeless figure whose mind bridged the mystical and the mathematical, the ancient and the modern. His story is a tribute to the enduring human spirit, to seek knowledge, to defend reason, and to marvel at the infinite universe that beckons us all. As Aryabhata's influence radiated outward across time and geography, the resonance of his intellect grew far beyond the verses of the Aryabhata. His spirit of inquiry kindled an intergenerational conversation between scientists, philosophers, and astronomers, each drawing from and expanding upon his insights. In tracing the rich tapestry of this intellectual legacy, we witness the evolution of Aryabhata from a solitary pioneer to a foundational pillar upon which later centuries would build their gleaming towers of knowledge. The centuries following Aryabhata's life saw his methods, particularly his astronomical tables and mathematical approaches, woven deeply into the practices of Indian, Islamic, and eventually European astronomy. In India itself, luminaries like Brahmagupta and Bhaskara offered critical commentaries and extensions on Aryabhata's work. Brahmagupta, writing in the 7th century, refined the use of zero, negative numbers, and the solution of quadratic equations, all while directly referencing the Aryabhata. His Brahmasfutas Dand corrected and elaborated Aryabhata's planetary models and mathematical rules, clarifying points of ambiguity and emphasizing the utility of zero as a number, not merely a placeholder. Bhaskara I, one of Aryabhata's most devoted followers, composed some of the earliest surviving prose commentaries on the Aryabhata around the 7th century. He championed Aryabhata's trigonometric and astronomical innovations and defended them against critics whose conservatism strained at the edges of Aryabhata's rational arguments. Bhaskara's works demonstrate not only the direct relevance of Aryabhata's models, but also the living scholarly tradition of debate, refutation, and synthesis that energized the ancient Indian scientific community. These Indian mathematicians were soon joined by a chorus of voices from the Islamic world, as Aryabhata's works found their way to the Abbasid court in Baghdad. The translation movement of the 8th and 9th centuries saw the Aryabhata rendered into Arabic, where it became the Aryabhata and merged into the thriving corpus of Islamic scientific treatises. Here, Aryabhata's innovations in spherical trigonometry, astronomical measurement, and numeration influenced titans like al-Khwarizmi and Abu al-Wafa. Al-Khwarizmi's treatises on arithmetic and algebra, themselves foundational for modern mathematics, explicitly reference Indian numeral systems and methods, a lineage traceable to Aryabhata's pioneering spirit. It is noteworthy that in the crucible of Islamic and Indian collaboration, the groundwork was laid for what we call Arabic numerals today. The numerals that underpin all modern science and commerce, including the revolutionary concept of zero, owe their shape and functionality to Aryabhata and the Indian tradition he epitomized. This transmission from India to Persia, and eventually Europe, would reshape the intellectual landscape of the world. Aryabhata's vision was now encoded in the very symbols that make computation possible, a testament to the ripple effect of a single innovative mind. The astronomical tables, or zyges, produced in the medieval Middle East drew extensively from Aryabhata's mathematical astronomy. His sign tables and planetary calculations were indispensable to early Islamic astronomers as they developed sophisticated observatories and star charts. When Islamic science reached Spain and southern Italy, Aryabhata's methods entered the European scientific renaissance, transforming Western conceptions of mathematics and the cosmos. This pan-cultural transmission exemplifies Aryabhata's greatest legacy, the creation of universal knowledge, untethered by geography or creed. Through waves of translation, commentary, and adaptation, the essence of Aryabhata's work, his algorithms, his models, his unyielding curiosity, became a vital thread in the global tapestry of human understanding. Back in his homeland, the structure of scholarly assent relied upon debate, commentary, and the incremental sophistication of inherited ideas. The oral and poetic tradition that had preserved Aryabhata's work for centuries evolved into voluminous prose treatises, formal mathematical proofs, and flourishing university systems. Aryabhata's core insights were never static. They were reinterpreted for new contexts, applied to new calculations, and questioned as science itself matured. Yet despite near-universal admiration in scientific circles, Aryabhata's rational approach continued to meet resistance among those attached to older cosmologies. His displacement of supernatural explanations for eclipses and his insistence on placing mathematics at the center of cosmic understanding were radical for any era. In time, the empirical worldview he espoused would prove robust enough to weather controversy and become embedded in classical Indian education, guaranteeing that each new cohort of learners encountered his truths afresh, absorbing the lesson that the world is comprehensible through human effort. The continual prioritization of observation and deduction within Aryabhata's tradition charted a middle path between spiritual and mechanistic models of the universe. His successors synthesized the empirical rigor of mathematics with the poetic worldview of Vedic and Buddhist metaphysics, a hybrid that nurtured generations of polymaths and ensured that even the most radical discoveries remained connected to the deep ethical and philosophical questions of human existence. Amid these intellectual developments, Aryabhata's work also exerted practical influence over Indian society. As the calculations of calendars, festivals, and agricultural cycles became more accurate, Aryabhata's reforms shaped everything from daily ritual to long-term planning, subtly anchoring the rhythms of the subcontinent in the patterns he decoded from the heavens. In a message to future generations, Aryabhata's life and labors return us again and again to a central insight. Science is not an endpoint, but a journey. Understanding does not diminish the world's majesty, but amplifies it. Each new answer, each decimal place of pi, each eclipse predicted, each shadow measured, is an invitation to deeper wonder. The true measure of a mind ahead of its time is not the number of answers found, but the questions it bequeaths to those who follow. His advocacy for disciplined inquiry, respectful skepticism, and a profound humility before the unknown sets Aryabhata in the company of the world's most enduring teachers. His humility is particularly striking. Rarely is there braggadocio or defensiveness in his terse verses, only the calm assurance that comes from unwavering attention and a desire to contribute rather than dominate. In Aryabhata, we see that the path to real discovery is both an individual journey and a communal legacy. As we near the end of this exploration, the figure of Aryabhata stands not only as a mathematician or an astronomer, but as a model for the modern scientist, one who unites the powers of patience, creativity, resilience, and ethical purpose. He represents the possibility of transforming immense obstacles into lasting achievements, of kindling light in times of pervasive uncertainty, and of building bridges across cultures with nothing more than a sharp mind and a willingness to ask, why? Aryabhata's story culminates not merely in achievements of mathematics and astronomy, but in a legacy that transcends epochs, connecting the past and the future through the unending quest for understanding. His life, like a finely tuned celestial body, orbited around pure curiosity, methodological rigor, and the courage to envision beyond accepted horizons. As we conclude this journey through his remarkable mind and times, it is fitting to reflect on the broader meaning of his work and the timeless message he imparts. Throughout his era, Aryabhata grappled with formidable obstacles, limited tools, scarce resources, social resistance, and the uncertainties of oral knowledge transmission. Yet he turned these challenges into opportunities, creating compact, memorable verses that encoded complex algorithms and cosmic truths. His poetic articulation was both elegant and practical, ensuring that his insight survived centuries of changing political and cultural landscapes. Aryabhata's mathematical brilliance endowed humanity with tools that underpin modern life: the positional decimal system and the concept of zero, foundations not only for computation, but for the formal structure of logic and technology. Without this framework, the digital revolution, modern physics, and even everyday arithmetic would be inconceivable. His meticulous approximations of pi, pioneering algorithms like Kataka, and development of trigonometric functions established a language through which the cosmos could be translated into numbers and predictions. But Aryabhata's contribution went beyond technique. He reshaped humanity's conception of its place in the universe. His bold assertion that the Earth spins on its axis was a profound shift from static cosmic assumptions, an invitation to reconsider the nature of reality through observation and deduction. By explaining eclipses as natural events governed by geometry and alignment, he stripped away superstition and replaced fear with knowledge, empowering successive generations to view the heavens not as realms of capricious gods, but as the domain of lawful order. The ripples of Aryabhata's ideas bounced through the corridors of time and space. His work inspired Indian scholars, was absorbed and expanded by Islamic mathematicians and astronomers, and eventually seeded critical developments in European science. The numerals we use today, the trigonometric concepts that enable celestial navigation, and the algebraic algorithms that solve complex equations all owe an unspoken debt to Aryabhata's pioneering spirit. Yet amid this immense intellectual heritage, the man Aryabhata remains an almost mysterious figure, a symbol more than a personality. His sparse biographical details invite us to project our deepest hopes for human potential into his silhouette. A young scholar by the river, a fiery mind under banyan trees, a meticulous observer of stars by night, unfazed by cultural resistance, driven by an inner flame to unravel cosmic secrets. The essence of Aryabhata's legacy is not just in what he calculated, but in how he approached the unknown, with relentless curiosity, humble reasoning, and a poetic faith in the harmony of the universe. His life teaches that progress is born from the fusion of imagination and discipline, skepticism and wonder. It reminds us that the greatest discoveries often arise when courage meets method, and when bold questions are met with careful answers. As we close this narrative, Aryabhata's enduring message echoes clearly. To question is not to rebel, but to revere. To seek not to conquer, but to understand. The universe invites endless exploration, and in each star's silent glow, the promise of discovery awaits those brave enough to look beyond horizons. From the ancient sands of India to the farthest reaches of space, Aryabhata's spirit endures, a shining star that guides the collective human journey toward knowledge, wisdom, and infinite wonder. If you ever wish to revisit his story or dive deeper into any aspect of this timeless legacy, just ask. The pursuit of understanding is eternal, as Aryabhata showed us long ago.